Today is December 5th, and it is day 60 since the war between Israel and Hamas has begun. Here in All Israel News, we're bringing you the same news as many Israeli families are watching Channel 11 in their living room. And the first headline is the hostages' reports, or the hostages' testimonies, that they spoke in their own voice to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about how the terrorists treated them. We'll open with some of the dramatic testimonies. The terrorists touched the girls or the women, and everybody knows it. We also knew that nobody moves without anyone who was guarding them. The medication was finished and they gave us the wrong medications. They told us, Ein Israel, there's no more Israel. Ein, there's no more. And we believed them, and I'm so sorry we believed them. We believe that Israel has abandoned us because they made us believe that there's no more Israel. Here is a voice of another hostage. She says, you think the men are so strong? My husband was beating himself up in the face, punching himself until he was bleeding. He was having such a hard time. It was too hard to bear, too hard for him to bear. And she cannot imagine what he's doing right now alone. Here's a voice of another elderly hostage that was released. We were afraid. We were sitting in tunnels. We were afraid that we'd be bombed, not by Hamas, but by Israel. The anchor is saying that the meeting between the families of the hostages and Prime Minister Netanyahu had a commotion and shouting involved. 6 women that were hostage and were released in the last few days, they also participated, and they shared in their own voice more testimonies about the abuse that they went through, about the bombings, and about the bad conditions they stayed in. The report is saying it was a tense meeting between Prime Minister Netanyahu and the families of the hostages. Prime Minister Netanyahu is quoted here. We hear him saying, we're thinking of how to bring back all of the hostages. And we hear one hostage or one family member of the hostages saying, give them all of the terrorists back, all the prisoners. Netanyahu is saying to the hostage families, I know you expected us to bring all of the hostages back. That's what you think we could do. That's what you thought we could do, but we couldn't. That option was not available. They're answering him back saying it's rubbish, and he says, no, these are actual facts. These are clear facts. During the meeting, Netanyahu promised that bringing back the hostages is the main goal of this war. He says we're doing everything that we can do in order to bring them back. So now these are the hours after the meeting between the hostage families and the war cabinet, including Benjamin Netanyahu. And here the reporter is saying that the emotions are very high. They're stormy. It's negative. They're not happy after this meeting. She's asking right now, Gil Dickman, he's the cousin of Carmel Gat, who is still kept in Gaza. Carmel is a girl, a lady that's still kept in Gaza. He says this is a hard day, the hardest day since October 7th. We came hoping that the government would say that they can release more hostages. We expected that they would say, we were full of hope, but he says the government, or Benjamin Netanyahu said, we can't, this is life, this is the situation, we can't release anymore. And the chances of releasing any more hostages right now for any sort of agreement are very, very low. The reporter is asking, well, Hamas is not letting go of women and children anyway. Is this not a justified reason to continue war? And he says, well, there are many types of families, some with men and boys that are there. But the government of Israel is waiting for Hamas to determine the conditions of this war and of releasing the hostages, and he's expecting that Israel will determine the conditions. Even though Benjamin Netanyahu is saying that returning the hostages is the number one goal, he doesn't feel that they're actually working towards that. The reporter is saying that this was the hardest meeting that has ever taken place since October 7th between the war cabinet, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the families of the hostages. And meanwhile, the anchor is saying that today has been the most significant day for the IDF forces in the heart of Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, with a very high price of 7 IDF soldiers. Here, Matan Damari, 31 years old, from Dimona. Eli Eliyahu Cohen, 23 years old, from Beit Nehemiah. Captain Yahel Gazit, 24 years old, from Moshav Rakefet. Captain Itan Fish, 23 years old, also from Paduel. Yakiri Didiah Shinkolovsky, 21 years old, from Migdal Oz. Tuval Yaakov Tzanani, 20 years old, from Kiryat Gat. Gil Daniel is in reserve duty, 34 years old, from Ashdod. May their memory be blessed. Ro'i Sharon, the reporter, is going to give us a update about what's going on right now in Gaza. This looks like northern Gaza, where the buildings are high. But in Khan Yunis right now, where so many forces, IDF forces are, the terrain is different. There are more agriculture areas and the buildings are lower. So the battles and the fighting is in a different nature. And they're calling Khan Yunis like the gravity center of Hamas, where so many strongholds are there. They're using the word gravity center in Hebrew, Merkaz Kovet, quite often. A lot of aerial activity, explosions from the Air Force, from the Israeli Air Force, to make it easier for the ground forces to work better in Khan Yunis. But meantime, there's also hard fighting in the northern part of Gaza. This is where the 7 soldiers died. 2 big areas where Israel really needs to take over in order to protect Israel. And here this reporter is talking about tens of thousands of Gazan citizens moving from Khan Yunis, fleeing for their lives. Most of them are going to the Rafah crossing, which is between Gaza and Egypt. So Israel is sending to the Gaza and Khan Yunis citizens a message in Arabic saying, please, whoever hasn't left yet, please stay in a safe place. But yes, the IDF was also asking them to leave. Better to leave Khan Yunis. And the next story is about a strategy that Israel has, or a tactic that Israel has to demolish or ruin the tunnels that the Hamas has in Gaza. So many tunnels, so complex. We remember from other times that Israel was surprised to see how well built this Gaza metro is, what served the terror. So the report is seawater and flooding the Hamas tunnels. This is the new tactic. Big pumps are situated in Gaza. Gaza is very close. It's sitting right on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea, so this is an advantage that the IDF is using. These are very strong, big pumps that is pumping a lot of seawater into these tunnels. According to the report, the IDF is hoping that the terrorists will come out of these tunnels, and that the seawater will demolish war rooms and electronics and, of course, ammunition. And the question is, what if hostages are in these tunnels? Now to the next story is that throughout today there was a barrage of rockets, a heavy barrage of rockets coming from the Gaza Strip. They are still shooting. It reads more than 100 rockets were launched today throughout Israel. The most since the beginning, since the renewal of the war, since the end of the temporary ceasefire. And we see here in this video, this is in Tel Aviv, where shrapnel falls a few centimeters from these guys walking outside, while the interception happened in the sky by the Iron Dome. The reporters reminding us, stay in safe rooms. When you hear the siren goes off, that's warning that a rocket is coming from Gaza. The anchor is going back to Khan Yunis, where the hard battles are happening right now, where the seniors are hiding, and where the IDF has been killing many, many terrorists. It says the day 60 to the war. And these are significant moments for the ground maneuver. Under heavy aerial fire, the ground forces of the IDF can go into Khan Yunis. And the IDF is calling this day as a very significant day, one of the most significant days. And this is the Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, says that our forces are crowning Khan Yunis. He says, whoever thought that we will not be able, that the IDF will not be able to renew the fighting since the ceasefire was wrong. He says, we're taking control over many Hamas strongholds, and we're working in their gravity centers, the Hamas gravity centers, as we mentioned. So they're also summarizing that so many Khan Yunis citizens are just moving south towards Rafah. They're saying that the seniors of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar and Muhammad Def, are hiding, according to Israel's assessment, in Khan Yunis. These are the guys that planned and commanded over the terrible massacre on October 7th. The IDF says that the artillery corps shot over 1,000 shells since the beginning of the war, and they estimate that 6,000 Hamas terrorists have been killed. The anchor is saying that we're exposing that many of the terrorists that are in Gaza are actually staff, medical staff in the hospitals in Gaza, many arrests in the hospitals in the Gaza Strip. 21 workers in the Gaza hospitals, there are quite a few there, were arrested by the internal national security of Israel because they're or terrorists or they were very much equipping or helping, giving aid to terrorists. Some of the medical personnel that were assisting Hamas and have been arrested are doctors, paramedics, directors, and also ambulance drivers. So these are some of the main stories that Israelis are watching this evening in their living rooms on Channel 11. For more stories, go to All Israel News. Follow us on our social media. And to help All Israel grow, you can subscribe to our channel and like this video. This is Rotem Magen for All Israel News.